Alright, welcome back to Chapter 7, video number 2. We're going to carry on talking about creating a reference type. And there are two kind of key steps typically required. You need to declare the reference variable, and then you need to create an object and associate with the reference variable itself. Now we've seen this when we created an object using a class called random. So there is a class called random that we can create an instance of a random number generator. So what we're doing here, and here's kind of the syntax right here. Random is the name of the class. We want to create a new instance of the class called rand. That information right there gets set up in the stack. It's very organized. And then we're going to tether it to a new instance up onto the heap called random. And we've got the braces right here. So the rand is what gets set up in the stack, and this is tethered to a new instance of that object that's created up onto the heap memory. And that's typically what happens when we create a new instance of a reference type. Alright, now let's have a look at basic arrays. Now what is an array? Well, an array simply is like a collection of similar or like items. They call it here a group of items of the same data type that you're going to put into the memory. And we use arrays when we want to process large groups of numbers or large groups of objects sort of together. It's a better way of managing and organizing the information. To this point, if we wanted to store a lot of different numbers, let's say for the example down here like student grades, we could have one student, and I would have to put in all the different grades into different value references here, and then put them all together. It would be very cumbersome. So by creating an array, we could create one object here, and then we could dimension out an entire set of grades for a student, for example. Now, if we did it individually, of course, each variable would be separated, would be a separate item, have to be declared separately, have to be manually organized and put together. And if there was dozens of marks, which in the case of this course, and there's a lot of different assessments, that would be a lot of work to manually put it all together. So storing data in variables is not ideal. If it's a one-off, of course, that's the way to do it. If there's more than 3, you should start looking at possibly setting up this into an array. Alright, so how do we do this? Now, first of all, arrays are a reference type, so we're not going to be storing the individual value in the stack. We're going to be creating a new instance of an array object and putting the data up onto the heap as we do that. Now, how do we actually define an array? Well, down here, you can see here that the generic format here to declare an array is we need to identify the data type, whether that's an int or decimal or double or string or whatever type of that we're trying to declare. And then we use these square brackets to denote that we want to create an instance of an array, and then we give it a name. So this is the name that we want to assign, and that gets assigned inside of the stack of the computer. Now, once we've created this and it gets created in the stack, we want to create an instance or tether or dimension that out as a particular size up onto the heap. So then we take this that's created in the stack and we want to tether it up onto the heap, and we're going to create a new instance and dimension it out to a particular size. So we have to use the same data type here. Of course, this side type has to equal that side. So if I'm doing an integer, this would have to be int, and then we dimension out how many elements do we want in that particular array. So an example down here is if we dimensioned it out, the numbers in the array would equal a new instance of sectioning out 6 elements that we could place into this variable right here. Alright, so we'll carry on in the next video.